Hi, welcome back. We're just looking at going through our daily loop for today. We're going to start it with checking for transfer bids, and we'll go through, look at the scouting pool, academy trialists, etc. At the moment, we've been just holding off on playing the match. We'll start probably saying it's partially because we've been playing loads of friendlies anyway, so testing things and whatnot, but we have our left midfield is injured, so we kind of wanted to try to not play the left winger because we don't want to play the wingers. So if we can help it, so at the moment we're just waiting to see if we can pick up a left midfielder. But eventually, obviously, we'll just start playing him. Eventually, probably today, tomorrow, not sure. But we don't want to end up in the situation we did last time with all of these matches to play at the last minute. So let's just look if we received any transfer bids. Okay, so we have. So this is our striker that we've been using a bit. I don't think we'd want to sell him until we get the replacement. I'm not sure. Maybe. I mean, I don't know that it's enough to care about only getting 75% of that value. Yeah, so I think we want the replacement first before we sell him. And this player, again, like it's not enough to care. We've been using him, so we want the replacement first before we sell him, definitely in this case. We'll think about this one a bit. It depends as well. We don't have much money at the moment, so it also depends if we want to buy somebody, how much they cost. And this player we're not using, so we can just sell him. I'll just click, so he's just not particularly, that good. We've not been using him, so we'll just sell him. So, right, we're going to look at our Scouter players list next. I think we're going to sort it by position. We'll go through the keepers. I think one thing, actually, before we go through this, I just realised that we've just kind of overspent generally. We've made a mistake here, and it's not... I think we've just been trying to buy players that fit into our system so that we can move the story along and we can show the tactics and stuff, because that's kind of probably, more interesting and it allows us to create a lot of content at the start, but we have been too aggressive, and part of this is supposed to be how to build your squad properly over time, and so we need to start trying to rectify this situation. Basically, there's no way that you would want this going down at all, arguably ever, but certainly not for a new user starting out. We will get more cash injections, but in regards to our squad construction, it's all right a bit for I don't think this is that bad as such, but the thing is we do need to buy more players still to round out our squad, so it's going to get worse and worse. So basically we've just got some players with too high wages at the moment. We needed to factor that in better. So I'll go to the squad quickly. If I sort by the wages, like for example this keeper, like whilst he might be pretty good or whatever, we should not have bought this keeper. We were okay with the starting one who was on super cheap wages. This guy's literally like, what's that, 23 point something times more wages. It was just a bad purchase. Good player, but bad purchase because the wages are so high. We need to be looking at closer to around 250k wages per player in our senior team starting kind of thing. This is more the wage. It could be a bit more, like 325 is okay or whatever, but that's the general range. And then as we get higher above that, like we can only really have a couple. We only should be looking for a handful of players. Let's say 1, 2, 3. I don't know. That's higher. It depends as well. Like obviously there is a difference between 400 and 600 still. So these players shouldn't be here. This guy we is only temporary anyway, so we will get rid of him. So yeah. It's on a case-by-case basis. I'm just saying the general idea here is that I guess for every player in our senior squad that's above 250k wages, we should be having another one that's below, basically. But I think the general rule is, as a benchmark for a starting player in our senior team at the moment, the benchmark is 250k. So if they're just a reasonable, decent starter or whatever, fine, 250k. If they're absolutely perfect and they're awesome, we can look for more. And if they're deficient in various ways, we should be looking for less. I think is the general rule here. At this juncture, we did pay up for this keeper as well. And he's 28. This is the thing; it wasn't a good purchase at all. This particular player, I think, if if we end up desperately needing the cash to buy another player, we may just sell him and cut our losses there. But probably the better move here is to just be a bit patient and end up waiting till we have him a bit longer and hopefully get a transfer bid at some point. Maybe he might end up worth a bit more, hopefully as well. So the losses won't be, we won't end up losing that much on him. But outside of that, don't think it's too bad. I think the other bad purchase was this MLC. Again, the wages are a bit on the high side. He is decent or whatever, but he's too old. I think the general rule here as well is that the players that are younger are likely to be way less polished, as in like way less, I guess, rounded. So they might have a good example of this is that DC actually that we bought. Where is he? I think it was this guy. So he has what we want, and he's only 210 wages, and that's partly because he has the attributes that we want, but a lot of the other stuff you can see here, like crossing dribbling, a lot of this stuff is sort of lower. It's way less rounded. So that then means that his wage demand is typically less. So one nice side effect of getting younger players is that they typically have lower wages as well. So plus we also would generally want younger players. It's better overall for us. I mean, we get to develop them up. Hopefully, they will end up really good. If they do, the wages will be higher, but at that point, it's in the future. We're promoted, we have more income. And also, if we don't end up keeping a long term, we can sell them and hopefully end up making some money on them, or at the very least, not losing much money on them. So as a general rule, we should definitely be looking for younger players here. So I would say, basically, we need to be looking to get rid of the keeper at some point. And definitely this guy, as soon as we get, we sort of should be, maybe, I don't know if desperate's the word, but yeah, looking for a replacement for him for sure. I think the MC here for sure. I think the DMC, again, at some point, this guy's less urgent if we end up needing to go with him. Okay. And then the AMC here as well. We did cover in the previous video. We accidentally bought this. This wasn't the guy we intended to buy. But at this point, we did pay it is like the keeper a little bit, but just less extreme. Like ideally, we hold on to him long enough that we could wait until we get a bid, but that could be quite a while. That's the thing. If we desperately need the cash, we'll liquidate him, we'll sell him, and probably do so before the keeper. I think in particular because we're not even starting him anyway. So it's like, yeah. But outside of that, no obvious mistakes. Just all of those ones, pretty much. So, yeah. So let's just keep looking. I think realistically, like on the projection, we're projected about 400,000 down over time. So it isn't that extreme. It's just literally like if we just sold this old defender straight away, it'd be in the green again. So it's yeah. So it's not. We can definitely just pretty comfortably recover from this situation, but we've just been a little bit too aggressive, and we just need to be mindful of that now going forwards. I mean, the other thing as well, we don't actually have that much. We'll get more cash injections as we play the matches, but for now, we don't have a lot of spending power. But maybe, yeah, it's like 1.1 million. So we're as soon as we want to buy a player that's like towards or over $1 million, we're probably going to have to sell someone first to be able to do that. So with all of that in mind, let's look at our scouter players. So we're sorting by the position. And like we said, ideally, now it's a weird one with the keeper because ideally we're going to be holding on to the current one until we get a transfer bid to sell him. That could be quite a ways at this point. So we don't really want to get... It's not the top priority now to get a replacement keeper. We kind of want to sell him first and then get the replacement. Unfortunately, it was just a bad idea to buy him, basically. So where does that leave us? I think that leaves us now that we could get the replacement beforehand, but only if like it's like awesome, like the keeper is one that has all the attributes we want, plus they're younger, and have the lower wages, and ideally also have a low purchase price. So it's very unlikely we're going to find that person, but if that person if we happen to come across him, we'll get him. And unlikely doesn't mean impossible; it just means unlikely. So, right, this keeper in particular, I'd say we definitely just would have bought this keeper if we hadn't have bought the other one, and it is a better fit for us than the current one. But like I said, we don't want to just sell the current one for that loss at the moment. Like, I think it's much better. Like, the wages are still a bit high for what we ideally would want. He's a bit old for what we ideally would want, but it is a lower purchase price. If you compare that to our current keeper, he is like, 2 or 3 years younger. His wage demand is like 250k less, and the purchase price is like way less, like $1 million less. So it would have been a much plus. He's probably a little bit worse, I think, than a current keeper, but we could have rolled with this guy, and he would still be a big upgrade over our starting keeper. But for now, I would say we're just not going to buy him on the basis of that, like I was saying, it's not really just perfect. Like, ideally the wages would be less, be closer to 250 rather than 450, and ideally he would be like at least 2 years younger. But yeah, we quite like the look of him though. All that being said, too old. Is better, we would rather him than our current keeper, and maybe if we didn't buy the current one, it would be a better purchase. Not entirely sure. The wages are just way too high. We're saying around 250 per player, so this is close to like 4 players worth. I don't think we'd want to have all of that tied up in the goalkeeper. I think in particular, like, if we get our system working well, and part of that is going to mean that we got to get the right senior player, like the outfield player, to get all that working well. I think to some degree, like, it won't even matter who's in goal if we get it working well. So, it's not a high priority, but this keeper's really nice. I think in particular, though, the low agility is a little bit scary. I think the low agility combined with the low handling, it means, for example, whilst they should generally, like, the shot stopping's great, which is fine, but quite a decent amount of those saves are going to end up being like parried. And whilst the parrying is good, that's fine as well. So it's not all bad. It's pretty good. But, basically, because he will parry them often when he saves them. And when he does so, he will take quite a long time to recover because of the agility. So he's not, make no mistake about this, he's a really good keeper, but not perfect either. And I think for us in particular, we shouldn't be even looking to be paying anything remotely close to that type of wages for a player unless they were basically perfect for us. So we're not going to get him on that basis. This keeper, I think we're just a bit tight on cash at the moment, so we're not really in any position to be buying players for our youth team, I don't think, unless they can also play for our senior team at this moment. So we're just going to disregard him, even though I think he probably is a pretty good upgrade on our youth keeper. This guy, yeah, I mean, decent, but again, it's just same situation. We're just not interested in the decent keeper. And again, decent. It's actually a pretty nice. I think all of these keepers, say except maybe Kim Couture, but all of these, if we didn't already have a keeper, if we didn't already buy that keeper and have all of our resources tied up into him, I think all of these could have been like seriously considered. So it's a pretty nice set of keepers that we got there. Too expensive for us. Don't using fullbacks anyway, so let's just move through. We do need centre half, but just not good enough. Not good enough. Not good enough. Not good enough. Sure, he's looking pretty decent for us. I think my concerns are that the lower aerial ability. I think that's about it though. So he's pretty nice. Outside of that, it's just ideally it'd be younger. Because we really want the players closer to like low 20s, and also ideally he would have like half the wages. So now we could buy him and just get rid of the older player that's on the 600k wages, and then basically say we know we're going to replace this guy as well. As far as our financial projection is concerned, in regards to cash being tied up, basically the other guy's got like 600k wages tied up on the projection, so this guy would have 450, so it would immediately save us 150 on the projection, but we would lose the 250 in cash plus the signing fee, but we'd gain the cash from the other guy. I think you add all of that up together, and basically getting this guy and selling the other guy means we have like close to 200k, 100 and something thousand less sort of money to spend. Maybe we do this, but like I don't know if just moving from one stopgap to another stopgap makes any sense. It from the perspective of it's effectively tying up nearly 200k extra in resources. I think, for example, if this guy was, say, a 50k and doing the same thing meant that we moved from one stopgap to another stopgap, but it freed up a little bit of money, then sure, maybe. But I don't think it makes sense to do that, move from one stopgap to another stopgap and lose money to do that. I don't think it makes sense. No, we're not really doing fullbacks. No. Alright, so unfortunately, I think we're stuck with the current stopgap on DC, and partly why we did that though is because we knew that it could be quite a few days before we have some flexibility with the DCs, but at the end of the day, we are only playing 3 defenders. They do need to be good for us, and we do have a bit of flexibility about which ones are good at what, but ultimately they have to be good at something. Right, the wingbacks not using DMC, no. Don't think, again, like I'm saying, like if we're going to tie up this kind of, not a lot of resources, but even this amount of resources, we should only really be looking to get that tied up if he's going to, at this juncture with the limited resources we have, we should only be really looking to consider a guy like this if he can do something for our first team, and he's not quite good enough for that. And again, this type of player here, for example, like we'd pretty much be expecting that if we wanted a DMC of this type of quality, we should be able to get a player like similar to this just through our academy trials. So yeah, ML. So this guy is definitely an upgrade over our current ML, and we are waiting for one to be able to play the matches. And in the past, on that basis alone, we would have just gone straight in and snapped this guy up. Having said that, we couldn't actually afford him unless we sell somebody else first. But I don't think it's just, again, for all these same reasons, we would want closer to half these wages. So we should only be looking for 500k, even considering this, if the guy is basically perfect for us. And I'd say he isn't on multiple accounts here, so like perfect. So one, he's too old. Ideally, we want younger. But even from an attributes perspective, he's definitely a clean upgrade, but he's not perfect for what we want because in our tactic in particular, and we could change the tactic, but in regards to the current tactic, what we ideally would want more tackling because he comes back to defend a bit. Ideally more crossing because we're getting quite a few crosses from him, and ideally more passing. Now, obviously, it's going to be very difficult to get a player that has all of those high and all of this other stuff high. So I'm just saying, like, the player isn't perfect. That's all I'm trying to say for us. So, but he's a very good player, though. Very good. I think if this player, for example, had lower wages and was like 24, we would just be trying to buy them. And if we needed to sell someone to do that, we would do that. But they're not. So I think we're going to pass on them, even though they're really good, just because, like I'm saying, we should be looking for younger players with lower wages. Basically, we only get to have 1 or 2 players in our whole team on this wages, so they need to be like basically perfect for what we need for that position to justify that. And whilst this player is really good, they're not perfect for that, I guess. To summarize that up, this player, I mean, again, it's just, if we're going to get one of these two, it's going to be the other one. Whilst he is better in some of the stuff that I said that we wanted, in fact all of it, he is better crossing, passing and tackling. He's still not good enough at the tackling for what we want, but would be maybe okay, but he is slower and we need this player to get up and back, and generally speaking, speed just matters for like a ML basically generally, so I think just if he was faster, like a bit faster, like had the other guys, if it was 77, sure, okay. So if he had 77, and he was like a few years younger, then we would definitely probably get him. But obviously, he's not either of those things. So then he would be getting pretty damn close to basically, I'm saying, what the player, like the perfect sort of archetype we need for a player, and we would be willing to go into that type of wages for him. So, right, no. Not good enough or whatever. But again, we're just instantly dismissing players at like this type of wage, pretty much, especially that age. No. I mean, arguably, like this guy is the type of guy we could do something with, but again, we just shouldn't be looking at players this age and this wage. Pretty nice, like, yeah, very well rounded, but that's why the wages are high, basically. So, this player, no. This doesn't fit. Like, he's sort of got strengths and weaknesses, but we have very defined roles for our midfielders. One of them needs to be really good at long shots, so he's not that one. And the other one is the box-to-box, so he needs to be good at many things, including the tackling, and ideally the long shots as well. And he's just not basically that player. This guy might be a little bit more suited to our box-to-box midfield role, but I think just not that great for that price. So we'll pass on him. This player has the long shots, but ideally, and he's good in the aerial ability, but I think just all things considered, like the price is too much for. He's not perfect. Ideally, that player also has very good passing and vision for us. So we won't get him. Again, ideally, the passing and the vision. He has the higher long shots though, which is good, and he's decent in the air, and he's reasonably quick, and he has a reasonable passing and vision. So lots of reasonable there and decent, but I think again it's over that 250k wage, so we're talking more towards perfect, and also he's a bit too old. We need to be more picky. In other words, a lot of these players that I'm talking about now are players that if it was a few days ago we would have just snapped them up. But that's how we've ended up in this mess to begin with. So, right. Now, arguably, if we wanted to start building the current tactic for our youth team, for our senior team, that we could pick this guy up for the MR, but we just don't have the resources to do that just yet because we just can't spend $500,000 on him. Right, moving on. So we're not using wingers, so we'd have to retrain these players, so we need to bear that in mind. So we just, I'm not getting those. AMC, just too high wages, and he's pretty good for what we want, but again, too high wages. I'd say too high wages, a bit old, and a bit slow. Which this bit slow we would be able to deal with if he was younger and lower, if he was like 100, lower wages and blah blah blah. If lots of things were different, then maybe, but they're not different. So, right, this guy doesn't have the long shots. We need that from this role. Doesn't have the long shots. We need that from this role. We're not using the wingers. This, possibly. I mean, he's got like we're not using wingers. Could we? I just don't think he's. If he was an MR, then he might be nice backup, but he's not, and it's not worth using our one added position for that. And then this guy, and then unfortunately nothing yet. Into strikers, just too old, too much wages. Sort of decent or whatever, but we just can't really be absorbing up the resources for the youth team, and we already bought sort of a striker to have one, so we're sort of okay there. Not good enough. A little bit too high wages, sort of the age. I like the finishing composure. The scoring is nice. He's pretty nice, but as a poacher, but I just kind of feel like if we're gonna get a striker that just shoots, that one, his movement isn't great, so it's not perfect at all for a poacher. But I just kind of feel like, and he can pass. We can be involved in the build up a little bit. So maybe think on that one. Just think. I think it's a maybe. Again, the wages are like double what we would ideally have. At the end of the day, like is he good enough to be our starting striker for multiple seasons? I don't think he's quite there. I think ideally, this could kind of be okay if he was either like really good in the air or he was faster, or a combination of sort of like both, like, you know, 65. Like, then he would be less one-dimensional, and again, ideally the movement. So, but I'm not saying, I think this is definitely the type of player that we could consider purchasing. I just think, in particular, we got our starting squad striker who we can use, and he's only on 30k wages, and we can sort of just hold on to him and happily use him. It affords us time. Effectively, when you have starting squad players you're happy to use, they start on the minimum wage, so it's those ones are in particular, almost in a way, they're the least important ones to have to replace. Plus, we've already got 2 other decent strikers. Like, for example, we got this other guy that we bought, this guy as well. So, like, yeah, his guy isn't as good as the one we're looking at, but again, like this guy, we're sort of happy to use him to bide our time, so to speak, and also he might get better. Plus, he's like closer to the wages that you want, like 250k. So I think we're probably going to pass on that guy. We also have to remember at this point we don't have any money, so like we want to make sure we do have some. We can get the more cash injections or whatever, but at the end of the day, like we need to be a bit more picky, because also if we keep just buying players, eventually, you know, hopefully there will be like some awesome player pop up, and we want to make sure that we can actually buy that player when it pops up. All right, so the last one. All right, so he's fast and he's good in the air. And he's 21. So he is, you know, and he's 250k wages. So basically, all of a sudden, a lot of the boxes are being ticked here. Like, he is fast or good in the air. He's both. And the 67, so he's good enough at finishing. Not particularly great at long shots, but good enough if he ever ends up taking one that you're not angry that he does. Not perfect. The movement is good as well. But also the dribbling a bit low or whatever. But, you know, obviously that's the thing. You're not going to get everything here. Not with part of the reason why the wages are low is because the attributes are way less rounded, so they're not all going to be good. But at the end of the day, if we were to say what are the 5 things that we care about most for a striker, for our tactic, we would probably be saying finishing, composure, movement, speed, and aerial ability. Now, these are the 5 things that he gives us. So, well, and a couple other things like the flare or whatever, which you're happy to have. And then the other stuff that, like you're saying, is semi-important. Like, we care about maybe strength. We're going to care about, and we care about the passing and the vision a bit. It's not great, obviously, but the passing's okay. And we care about the dribbling, but that's not great. So it's not, a lot of the secondary stuff isn't great, but at all. But like, the strength is fine, actually. So, and then we also have to consider he's 21, so he's actually could improve quite a bit. I think on the flip side, we are saying on the next boost as well, it's an interesting one. So we could get a contract extension, which is hugely valuable as well. If we want to extend this guy a contract later, it's going to cost us potentially like 10,000 manager skill points. So that's a pretty big deal. And then also on the boost, we're saying that at least on this side, extra vision, that was low, so that will be less of a liability, and the passing will be a bit better if we get it, and the composure will be a bit better, which is important, and the aerial ability will be better, so that's quite good. And on the other side, it's pretty similar, to be honest. We don't get the vision and the marking, which we're not too bothered about. We'll get 4 extra dribbling, which would be a big deal. So it'd actually be a really difficult choice between effectively the 4 dribbling points. Some degree, you're really saying it's a trade-off between the 4 dribbling and 3 vision and the contract extension, and I think it'd be pretty close. We'll think about that more if we get him. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The point is, though, is that he will even be better than this as the training options come through. I think basically this guy is just ticking all the boxes, so we do have to buy him. I think it's just a case of how do we free up the money to get him. At the moment, I think we can spend about think we're a little bit short. We could just try and buy him, but I think we're a little bit short. Let's just try and buy him. Right, we can't afford. Yeah, I thought we would be. So we're a little bit short. I think it's about. Let's have a look. We need about 1.35 on the projection, give or take. So, and we've got 1.1. So we need about 250k. Now it is a striker, so we could just sell this guy now. That's probably not going to quite get us there though. But it might just be time to sell this guy now because we've got. I think it is. Let's just sell him. Oh, we got it. He's in our team at the moment, so let's remove him from the team. He is on the low wages. Could be a while before we get it. He's a little bit. I think he's the one to sell. That's what I'm trying to say. I just thought I'd think about it before I just rush in and click the button. Once I've done it, I've done it. So don't want to rush necessarily too much. I think there is a problem that it's not going to probably be quite enough, but we'll be able to just scrape the other bits from somewhere. It'll be close. So let's just. Yeah, I think it's the right move. So let's sell this guy. Right. So now let's see. Oh, are we? I think we might be slightly short, but maybe we not. We are slightly short still. I think we're short of about not much. 38,000, something like that. Alright, it's just going to take a break. I'll be back in less than 1 minute. I've got a cough and blow my nose and stuff because I'm sick. So give me a minute. Okay, sorry about that. I am back. Right. So yeah, so we were at needing to clear up about 38,000. Should be pretty easy to do. Let's just have a look what the options are. So we could get. Is there anybody that would just not really worth much enough that you care about waiting for the bid? Maybe. This guy's 66k value. So if you have a bid for him, it'll probably end up being less than his previous value because he's old and getting quite a bit worse. So it'll probably end up being he'll end up being worth 60 or less when we do get the bid. So, and then we would get 60k at the most, versus if we sold him now, we'd get 50. But then you're also paying 1k a day waiting. So I think this guy, it's like, even, you know, it's you could just sell him. The other option is probably Longstaff here, or this Klingenberg. But I think Klingenberg is the one that we would use first in case of an injury. But I think in particular the AMCs, if he gets injured, we'll then use this guy, and then if this guy gets injured, then we would use we would probably use, I think we could use either. I'm not sure who we would use, but if we get that desperate, we'll just do whatever we can. We're talking about 3 in the depth here. I think with the DCs, we are running 3 of them. It's way more likely they're going to get injured. We'd rather have the 2 extra DCs sitting around for a bit than the 2 extra AMCs. So we'll get rid of one of them. We'll get rid of this guy. I think on the basis that he's this one's worth more and may not go down in value when we get the bid. So if we're going to hold on to one waiting for a bid, it's better to be him. So let's go to this guy. Let's sell him, and this should be enough money to hopefully now be able to get the guy we want. It is cool. So now we've got, I think he probably just goes, he's going to be in our youth squad. He's probably going to be, we're going to have to put him in our youth team as well because he's excellent. So add him to the senior squad. I think for now, for the youth team, I'm not sure where to put him. I'll just put him up there for now instead of this guy, but I'll work it out after. It's not, it disrupts a lot of the balance, but we'll work. I just wanted to make sure he's in the team so we don't forget, that's all. So I think this is we're definitely gonna, when we look at this, when we go back to the youth, we will not forget, let's say. And I think if we end up playing the matches, there's this guy here, Kenda, and this Machlas. Right. So I think yeah, now I am doing it properly. Right, let's just do whatever for now. So I'm not sure, I'm not going to work it all out now. I'm just going to put him there and this guy on the bench just so we've got the tactical option in the match or whatever. So I'll work that out after. It's a different video anyway when we're playing the youth matches. So for now, I'm just going to go to the senior squad. And I think probably we just, again, I just want to make sure I don't forget. So I think he's probably in the endurance 44 and 42. And this guy, yeah, less. So I think this is how we will do it. Work it out after. This guy's also fast and good in the air. So we've ended up, yeah, 2 sort of similar strikers. It's not 100% ideal, but at the end of the day, like, you couldn't pass up on this guy. We'll work it out after. Work the tactics out after. So for now, we'll go through the rest of the loop. We want to do our training options now that we bought the player. We've got to make that tough decision. So this is the player here. I honestly feel like we've got to take the contract extension. At the end of the day, I think if it wasn't for that, we'd be taking the other option with those 4 dribbling points. But I just can really see that this guy could be like a super useful player in 4 seasons, even if we sort of end up getting back-to-back promotions. and this guy isn't quite good enough for whatever level we're at, this guy would still be an excellent backup sort of thing, third choice striker, whatever, even in a decent division. So, and he might develop really well, in which case then we definitely want the contract extension. So I feel like we just got to take that, and basically it's just too valuable. This is the thing. Like, yeah, the dribbling points matter and everything too, but it's a similar thing with adding the position. So basically, like, when I talk about the contract extension here, why it's worth. If we go to the manager skills and we look at extension, we get 3 extensions, but then for each extra one we want, it's kind of like whatever 10, 9. So there are like about 10,000 points basically for each extra one we want. And whilst we don't really have any players, like, I mean, the thing is, he probably will get one of the contract extensions from this season as well. We'll give it to him. But the thing is, in the future, these contract extensions will matter. Like, they're going to be a very limited resource. We're going to be squeezed, and there's going to be a lot of players we want to give them to. So, the fact that you can get like a free one now for that player who you probably will have in the future, and if you do, you probably will want to give him a contract extension. By selecting that option now, you can kind of see that as something like as like saving 10,000 manager skill points almost. You could view it through that lens. And then also with the positions, if you get a position on a player on the training option, that's a position that you want added. Like, you can sort of see it as like saving 8,000 or 9 or 10,000 or whatever points for that skill. So they're like, you got to factor that in when these things come up on the training options, I guess is what I'm saying. Doesn't mean you have to pick those options, by the way. And again, you may not be the contract. It may be it may be the case that you don't plan to have that player longer term, so the contract extension doesn't matter. It may be the case that the position that's being added isn't one that you care about or whatever. Like, it may not matter at all, but it may matter a lot, or it could be anything in between. You need to factor that in. So this is a keeper that we're starting for the youth team. He's not one that will be around long term at all. In fact, he's pretty bad, but so we're just going to pick the option that makes the most. Oh, okay. Overthought that, didn't I? So, right. And then I think that he is starting in the youth match, and he's the one we've been bringing off the bench in the senior bit. Yeah, so this guy's getting quite a bit of play at the moment, which is interesting because he might end up developing into something, because I can already see on this training option he's going to get a lot of extra attribute points. So, right. So we're saying the movement and the 3 vision is better, or you can get 1 aerial ability. So we're sort of saying, what would you rather have? 1 aerial ability and 1 movement, or 3 vision? Let's look at the guy. It's a close decision. 1 aerial ability, it's already low anyway. And 1 vision, I think, versus the 3. I think we want the 3 movement. Is that what it was? Already getting confused now. No, it was 1 aerial ability and 1 movement versus 3 vision. Right. So don't care about that. The movement we do, and the vision, sort of. I mean, I think it's close. Thing is not particularly lethal. Like, the movement matters a bit. Yeah, okay, he's already decent. I'd say the aerial ability is the least important because he's not probably ever winning anything much anyway, no matter what at this point. So I think you can almost discount that. So instead you're saying it's an aerial ability and a movement versus 3 vision. So what you're really saying, if you discount that almost, you're saying, well, would you rather have 1 movement or 3 vision? So I think we'd rather have 3 vision, basically. Because at the end of the day, even if this is the difference here, I suppose, is that even if the vision is low and the passing is low, he's still going to pass the ball. Like, it's still going to happen. He may not be winning any aerial contests, but because that's low, but he's still going to need to pass it. So however low the passing and vision is, it still always matters. So I think we're going to take the 3 points in the vision. Alright, is that all of them? Oh no, we have 1 left. And then this was a guy, he has been playing as well in the senior team, and he may end up playing a couple more matches yet because our left midfield is injured, and it's looking likely we're going to get another one. Now, we just took him out the youth team. I don't know what this guy's future holds, but for now, We'll just pick, hopefully there's one that makes more sense. So we got an extra crossing. I don't think the positioning matters. He does get back to defend a bit, but I don't think the positioning matters too much. I think it's pretty sure it's this side. It's the 4 passing and a crossing and 4 work rate. Yeah, it's definitely better. It's not close. Or 1, basically, it's 4 work rate and a crossing and 4 passing versus 1 extra finishing and 2 extra positioning. So it's absolutely the B option there. So that's that done. And now we go to our academy trialists. Alright, control, that's come up low. Long shots, decent, good. So he's still in the hunt, it seems. Not awesome, but yeah, good enough. I mean, looking pretty decent. Strength, good enough. Shot stopping, low. So we had that keeper in just specifically to see if that was going to come out at basically close to 60, and it isn't. So he's gone now. Just need to find somebody else. The marking here, come out really low at 7. I mean, ideally our MCs can mark a bit. It is like it's not a pointless, it's not like a useless, meaningless attribute. It matters a bit. So it's not great that came out at 7. I think at this point, like, there's enough really low stuff here that I'm not sure it really matters to wait around. Like, even if the passing comes out really high, I'm not even sure how much that matters at this point. I mean, it is super high control and the long shots. So maybe, we'll see. It depends what other options there are. But I think in particular, if the passing comes out really high and he's got that high control and the high long shots, like the thing for us is that just because the marking is low, and these things that are low at the moment, they don't discount him from either of our roles, the 2 roles that we want for our MC. So maybe he hangs around. We'll see what other options there are. And then this guy, the durability's come up. That's low. It doesn't necessarily discount him because we wouldn't necessarily expect. I think we're going to end up with a pretty. We'll always be defensively not great because of the fact we're not playing 4 defenders. We're only playing 3. So our keeper will always have work to do. That's the thing. So the durability is always going to matter for us. And especially, I guess, from the lens of by the time this guy, if we graduate him, by the time he ever ends up in the senior team, it's going to be far enough in the future that we should be in a high division. And at that point, like, no matter how good our team is, our keeper will always have work to do, just because of the tactic. So I wouldn't say he's completely discounted. Not, but yeah, we think about it matters the fact that that's low. So, so basically, I think a combination of, let's say, if you're playing, just so you try maybe quantify this a little bit more to help other people. If you're playing a tactic that is not a very defensively solid tactic, and you are expecting that the other team is gonna, be able to create a lot of chances to shoot a lot. If you're expecting that your keeper is going to have a lot to do, then the durability attribute matters a lot more. Basically, whereas if you are a much more defensively solid team and your keeper doesn't typically do as much, then the attribute matters less, because basically this means as the keepers do things in the match, it'll impact their condition loss, and this sort of reduces that. So, right, the speed is coming up next. I think we would just if we got this guy, we'd wait for that. Outside of that. The tackling, it matters a lot, and it's not coming up. So the marking will come up soon, but I think the fact that the tackling just isn't there, and the fact that also even in another position it can't be any of the midfield roles because of the low passing, I think we just not going to look at that guy. The passing is next. Maybe, but I think on the whole we would just continue to wait for this guy with the B on the passing because he's just better for what we need based on what we see. So yeah, not him. No passing coming up, so not him. I think the tackling is okay, but not awesome. And if you're going to get a centre half with tackling of this type of value at this juncture, like if we're going to speculate on this guy, then he needs to be awesome at everything else that matters. So one, he can't be the passing and vision isn't, so that's a problem. And my positioning is not good. The strength is not particularly good. The air ability, so basically he's just no matter kind of what, even if he's got 60 in speed and 60 in marking, that's probably not enough to want him anyway. And it's obviously exceptionally unlikely they're both going to be 60. So, right. Would have to retrain this player in a different position. So straight away, he needs to be awesome to justify that. So yeah, I think just not quite awesome enough. I mean, the marking is there, but I think the fact that the low determination is going to be impactful regardless on his development with his the points accumulation. I think we'll just give a pass on this guy, and it'll be a long time until we know if he's fast, all good in the air, and he'd have to be one of those two things for us to consider him as well. So I think pass on that guy. He's slow, so straight away it'd have to be awesome at other stuff and MC, and we've got to wait ages to find the passing out, so we'll pass on that guy. Good passing, he's slow, good endurance, so in theory that's good for the box-to-box midfielder, but he would also want high work rate, which we don't know, and also because the speed's slow, it's like even if he wants to work hard, and even if he has a high work rate, he ain't going to get up and back that fast anyway. Plus he would also need to have the high tackling for that, so then you're left with probably not great for that role. The other role we need high long shots, and it's not even there to see coming up, so not him. Too low tackling, shot stopping decent, parrying horrible, so the agility, the handling going to matter a lot, and we're not finding out for a while, and then irrespective of what that comes out, the agility is going to matter a lot, and we won't be finding that out for quite a while. So if we get this guy, we'd have to hold him for ages. Not sure we're happy with that. But having said that, there are a couple players we know we definitely don't want, and we've not really found any yet that we're happy to put in. So maybe he ends up just putting on the basis that there's nobody else to put in. So this guy, all right or whatever. But again, we have the retraining issue because he's not the position we want. So the positioning is bad. Marking is okay. We could work with this a bit, but again, it's the positioning issue, and we're not going to put him in any midfield role because of the low passing, so it is just centre half. So in order for that to be the case, the aerial ability matters, which is already low. And then, I'd say no for him either. The DMC, so the passing is okay, positioning is great, marking is okay, strength low, vision not great. So I think in order for him to realistically be part of something we'd be interested in, he would need to have really high tackling and aerial ability and determination. Now, we would find out the aerial ability and the tackling soon, and if they both come up good, then maybe we're willing to wait for the determination. But the thing is, even if they're both high, it's still not perfect or awesome or whatever. But again, I'm just probably not, but there are a couple we definitely don't want to hold on to, so maybe he ends up in. We'll find the speed out next. The aerial ability isn't great, but he's got super high marking. If the speed comes out super high, then you would be waiting for the tackling, and the determination would matter, but we'd find that out after. So maybe this guy, because the positioning and the marking are both high. Aerial ability not great, but we can handle one centre half that doesn't have particularly high aerial ability, as long as they, this guy could end up alright, basically, and we are finding out. Like, for example, he's not good in the air. If the speed come out and he's slow, just straight away gone. If that ends up really high, we could wait for the determination. If that's low, just gone. But if that's also high, then at that point, you're saying it's control, movement, don't care, but then you get the tackling. So I think we could roll with that guy for now. I think no, just long shots low, that basically eliminates him from both roles almost, possibly the box-to-box midfielder. And then you're saying just determined, I just think just not. Between the super low determination, we just don't want to, and the ages to find the passing out. It just doesn't make sense. Have to retrain this guy, so we need to bear that in mind, but he's got super high, like 42 average reveal attribute score, so that's super high. Would have to retrain him in a position, but it could potentially end up being anything. Realistically, what is that? If it is potentially anything, well, it's 40 passing, 36 dribbling, 43 finishing. Is not going to be enough to be striker or AMC. In regards to all the central defender roles, the aerial ability is low, so he's probably discounted from those. The marking's not particularly great, So he's probably discounted from those. And then you're left with the defensive midfielder role. If the tackling ends up high enough, then sure, he could potentially be that role. In regards to the midfield role with the long shots, ideally would have higher passing and vision for that than this. We don't know what the vision is, but we have to wait ages. Maybe he could be the box-to-box. And maybe, but unlikely, he could be... got the good work rate as well. So I think if he comes out like really like fast enough, and he could potentially be the box-to-box. It basically needs this sort of trend to continue of these type of attribute scores, and then... so maybe. And this guy, I think, just not winger. So, I mean, he is 40 overall. I think the thing is, the long shots, that's just immediately discounting him from all of our roles except for DMC and the central defenders. And I think the tackling, maybe he could be DMC. But I think if I'm going to speculate on a player out of position to be our DMC, I think I'd rather it just be the other guy. I'm going to go with the other guy. So, and then this guy, I think not just 15 passing. So we were left with basically maybe him. Maybe it was him as well. And there was one other one that it was maybe. Thought it was a goalkeeper. Where was he? There was a goalkeeper somewhere. Did we already put him in? Oh no, it was the one that we had. We said maybe we will persevere a bit with him. So we only had, in the end, we were saying maybe this DMR, and plus we also have to consider he's out of position if we get him. Oh, we said maybe this guy as well, because we find the speed out and then the determination. Yeah, okay. So it's 3 maybes. This DMC, this DC, and this DMR. That's where we're at, these 3 guys. And we probably know that this guy's straight out, so we can put in... I feel like probably he's the one that we want to get in the most, so we get him in. And then we're also saying that that durability was low and not ideal. It doesn't entirely discount him. This guy here, at this point, I think I'd rather speculate on this DMC than this guy. So let's just do that. And then we're left with because we still would have to wait to find out. We'd have to wait a while to find out if the passing is any good. And this, basically, we'll wait forever to find out if he can possibly be our box-to-box midfielder. And even if the passing is high, so he would have the passing and long shots, which we want for our other role, but, he's got quite a few weak attributes here, including the low determination that we care about. So I think I'd rather just speculate on the other guy, basically. So, and then we were left with this DMR. That's the thing. So, and there is that consideration that it would have to be this, had this position to him, and realistically, it's just unlikely that position's going to be DC because of the aerial ability and the marking, and it's just unlikely it's going to be any of the attacking stuff because of just the low dribbling and passing and stuff. So it could be the box-to-box. That's it. So it's only one possible position he could end up being for us. And then in order to know if he's going to be the long shots, the speed. Okay, so maybe we could wait until the speed. So maybe that makes sense. Um, yeah, okay, so I feel like we'll just get rid of this keeper then because of that low durability. It's a hard one because we do find out the parrying next, and then we know the handling, the parrying, and the shot stopping. If that parrying happens to come out really high, then he does have the sort of handling is super high. If the parrying is super high and the shot stopping is good, and at that point it's not far to the determination still. I mean, potentially this guy can still be like really good, and we would know sort of immediately. Let's say like if that parrying is low, we could just disregard him. So yeah, it's tricky at this point because there's like control. So again, we're left with this guy. If we keep this guy, we'd have to retrain him to center half probably, possibly the DMC at this point. But we will have to retrain him, so he's in the same bucket as the DMC, the DMR here. Sorry, that in order to know, really, we would have to find out the aerial ability for the DCs, and that's some ways off. You would know when you find out the passing if he's eliminated from being our defensive midfielder role, but that's some ways off. But at least it's coming. Like realistically, you're finding out flair. It doesn't tell you anything. Endurance tells you something, especially with the box and the C as well. So you find out if he's eliminated from box to box midfielder after B and or C. Then your division, which does matter a bit for the defensive or box to box midfielders. You do okay. So the ordering here isn't horrible. I think it's fine. Basically, we want to keep 7 guys, and we can only keep 6. Is where we're at, and it's not a very immediately obvious and clear decision as to who it should be. This guy would get discounted if he's low speed, but at that point, would then need to hold him for quite a while, and or discounted when you find that out. And then then it's not far at that point to there. So I can see why they're all here. I'm just not sure the right decision to make. I feel like probably the right decision is to again, it's hard because you're finding out the speed and the strength and the determination here all soon. Right. I'm in analysis paralysis almost. Like it's very alright, what about this guy? We know for a fact that he's got decent speed, but he's definitely not fast, and he's weak. And the marking isn't particularly good, and the vision isn't particularly good, but the positioning is excellent, the passing is excellent. So we know, for example, that for our deep line playmaker, he's straight away not ideal because of the passing and vision. And then for the more destroyer type, and then just generally for marking players and backtracking in the box, he's not good at that either. He's also weak and not fast. He's not slow, but he's not fast. So realistically, like even if he's got 60 tackling, then he could be the more like destroyer type role. And at that point, I think you're saying you'd only really consider him still though, because he's got other deficiencies. He would have to have super high aerial ability so he can contribute on set pieces, but you were finding that out soon. And then at that point, you're saying, and even then, you'd still only be interested in developing him up if he had high determination. But after you found out the aerial ability and the tackling, if they're both high, then it isn't that far at that point to find out the determination. It's still a ways though, but not that far. So I can see him as well, and also we wouldn't have to the position that he's getting the attributes towards is the one, his position. You wouldn't have to retrain him. So I think on the whole, like the it's not an insignificant factor, the adding the position when all these guys don't need it. So I think in the end, it is the correct decision to keep these ones. And then the only decision that really exists at this point, I think, is if you are saying for the 6th slot, is it this guy who you would retrain, or is it this guy? Who's the more likely to be useful? And I think it's just this guy, because he's has enough speed that's great, the marking is great, and the tackling is great, and he's not discounted. These attributes that he currently has do not discount him from being a central defender. They do not discount him from being the destroyer role in DMC. They do not discount him from being the like a deep line playmaker in DMC. They do not discount him from being the box-to-box midfielder. And they don't actually discount him from being our attacking midfielder, in actual fact, because he doesn't get many closer range chances and doesn't dribble that much. So what really matters for that more attacking role is actually the long shots, the passing, and the vision. And yeah, we don't know either of these, and they're coming up in the ways, and you wouldn't know the long shots for the last minute. But I'm just saying he's not actually discounted from being able to play that role. So basically, I think the correct decision is to go with this guy, because yes, we'd have to retrain him, but at the moment, he's open to being many roles and as a possibility for us, and also just has really good, like, this marking and tackling and speed is just very good combination, a good enough combination that can overcome quite a few deficiencies in other areas. So we'll keep him, basically. So after all of that, we decided to not pick the guy that actually has the highest average reveal attribute score out of all of our players available. So hopefully that thought that helped, I guess, because it was quite a tough decision, I would say. And that concludes the sort of the daily video to go through our different pools and stuff. So I hope this helps, and we'll see you next time.